Good morning, Pam.
Hi, Erin. How are you today?
Good. It's Tuesday, and I've come to really love Tuesdays. So
Thank you. Looking forward to our conversations from week to week.
I know it's my favorite thing. And today we are going to be talking about the importance of first impressions, especially as they relate to our websites. So, and I talk about first impressions a lot, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, as we get further, as I try to minimize my windows. So I'm looking at the camera here. And really, you get one opportunity to make a first impression. It used to be 8 seconds, and now it's a lot lower because people get click happy. So we want to talk today about if you are making it count for your business. So let's introduce ourselves first, because I think I skipped through that. So Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm a remote work expert. My mission is to help you reimagine work to find joy. And I've created a community designed to help you do just that. It's called The Zone. We meet weekly for virtual co-working and monthly for networking and other special events. And if you're interested, I'd love to have you join us. We offer a free month for everyone.
Awesome. Well, and I'm Erin, Miss Jumps the Gun here. And I'm a copywriter and marketing strategist, and I work with high-powered action takers poised to do big things in their business. And I help get their messaging and strategy so it's just right and they can attract and engage their ideal clients. And together we've created this podcast where we have fun, frank, focused discussion, and we help you propel your business forward one bite-sized action at a time. And because it's Tuesday, we meet every Tuesday at 10:30 Eastern. So you can follow us on social or YouTube to get the latest on our episodes.
And today we have a really great conversation. It's all about how you make the first impression with your website. Last week we talked a little bit about when do you need to start to have a website or think about revamping it if you're already in business. But I think it all comes down to, like, what first impression are you making when a potential client does their, Googling and research to figure out who you are and what you're about. Or maybe somebody, you're applying for a job at some point and you have a website on there and you want your potential employer to check you out. And I think it comes back to, before we even get to the website, it's all about first impressions as a whole. So why are they important? Why does it matter? Well, I think in common sense and a lot of our experiences, you can realize that you have biases in your mind that you don't even realize you have. And when you meet somebody for the first time, they might look like somebody that you had a great experience with, and all of a sudden you're clicking with them without even realizing it. Or maybe it's the opposite. I'm expecting a child in August, and every time we talk about names, if you know somebody with that name, sometimes it makes you like or dislike that name. Consideration. It's first impression. You don't even know why you had that visceral reaction. But that's why when you talk about your branding for your business and your website, it's so important to try to get that first impression right, because sometimes this is the first interaction somebody has had with you, your brand, and what you do. And if you don't capture them and you lose them in that moment, it's harder to get them back and harder to get them to know you and like you and trust you, which are those three kind of words that sometimes sound cliche but are so true, that you hear over and over again from coaches and consultants in business. Because really, at the end of the day, when you are going to invest with someone, you want to invest with someone that you think is going to deliver what you need, right? So when we talk about first impressions in life, it really translates to first impressions in business, and knowing that you want to make it count. You want people to get that essence of who you are, how you can help them, and why you, amongst the competition, is that right person, or at least enough to keep scrolling to go beyond that headline. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin, because this is what she does every single day. And I know she's got to have quite a bit to say about why first impressions on your website matter.
I do, but before I even go there, I want to tell a little story about names. I had finalized my son's name with 2 choices, and then I found out that someone I didn't particularly care for had named her son. She was due around the same time, and she had named her son the first name. So it was like, that's it, off the table. But it's true. Like, your experiences with a name can really color your first impressions, but your experiences with someone in that past position. So if you are hiring, I don't know, let's say a graphic designer, and you've had really bad experiences with graphic designers, that is going to be kind of a focal point for how you make your decision. Are people speaking to those problems? And some people are really upfront, like, here's been my experience. Here have been some of the problems that I've had. How are you different? Whereas others are just going to come up with some other objections. So one of the things that you can do to stand out, and we'll get into this, maybe this episode, maybe another episode, is to show how you are not like the rest. And part of that's done with your website. And it really does. It gives, when done well, it gives your clients an opportunity, or your prospective clients, and here comes the cat. Speaking of first impressions, he'll make a really great one, I'm sure. The opportunity, it gives your clients the opportunity to get to know you, and it gives them kind of that, either the warm fuzzy or the opposite of the warm fuzzy to start with. And so you want to make sure that you're as close to those warm fuzzy vibes as possible. And it doesn't mean that you have to have on your website, it doesn't have to be all warm fuzzies. I think that's an important distinction. But you have to figure out what matters to your clients and speak to that right away on your website. And that's, interestingly enough, has it only been a year, or is it already a year? I'm not sure which one. Last spring, I was trying to figure out how I could show people some of my knowledge to overcome some of those common objections. There's something like 135,000 copywriters in the United States alone, with varying specialties, levels of expertise. So it was important to me to find a way to stand out and to make a good first impression with people. And I think that was maybe the initial conversation we even had about a podcast, Pam. But what I finally settled on is I could offer people free first impression audits, where I was hopping on their websites, and I did these for, I think, 15 weeks, and I did 3 a week. I'd hop on their website and say, okay, in the first 5 minutes, what can I tell you about your website that's going well, that's not going well, that's speaking to your clients, that's not speaking to your clients? Because when I first settled on website copy as an area that I can really, really help people, it was because I was going to entrepreneur after entrepreneur after entrepreneur's websites, and I was seeing some common problems. And so I think, without getting into the granular of all of the things that I see that could be better across the board, really what it boils down to is that the best websites are simple, and they make it super easy for people to find the information they need. But more important than that, you speak to all of their problems. You figure out who your client is, and you write to them. In copywriting, there's an amazing woman who basically created this whole new series of, I don't even know if it's stylistically, but instead of copywriting focused on cleverness, which is important because you have to be eye-catching, it's copywriting that's focused on converting, which is your client's pain points. So if you can speak to their pain points, and you can solve their problems and come up with their objections, figure out what they really want, like what is their real end goal, that is what's going to help them not only get to know you, but also get to feel like, oh my gosh, it's like you're speaking in my words exactly. And I'll give you an example. There was a fitness website that I came across in the very, very early days. And it was like, all they were talking about is the classes they offered, which is great. That's what you are. If you're a gym, you offer fitness classes. But it's about more than that. Like, what people really want, they don't actually want to go to the gym and work out. Well, maybe some of them do, but for the most part, they're going to the gym to get a specific result. Maybe they're looking to get like massive muscles. Maybe they're looking to be able to fit into the jeans that they wore before they had kids. Maybe they just don't want to be like struggling to button those pants anymore. Whatever it is, that's what you're selling as a gym. You're selling confidence. You're selling feeling better. So if your first line is like, welcome to my site, or welcome to our gym, or hey, we have amazing classes, people don't care about that. People care about being able to button their pants, or maybe sizing up in their t-shirts if they want like huge biceps. That's what it really focuses in on, or should focus in on. So to have the best website, to have the right first impressions where people are like, this solves my problems, and then you can get into sharing more information about yourself, but is getting clear first on who your audience is, second on their problems and when in the process you should catch them so that you are the ideal solution. So if you're catching them after they start to look, you have to stand out against way more competition than if you're catching them fairly early on in the decision-making process when they're starting to be pain aware. And then you can focus about why you.
Right. And I think what's really important to keep in mind when you work with a copywriter, or if you're writing your own copy, and you'll hear me say this, you've already heard me say this over and over again, is be yourself. Because if you are authentically who you are, delivering what you do best, it's going to come through. And that's just as important as you knowing who your ideal client is when you are speaking to them. It's making sure that they're getting a real feel for who you are, so that that first impression counts and is authentic, so that if they hop on a coffee chat with you or just book a service, better yet, from your website, give you money and show up for that consultation or whatever it is, they're going to get what they think they're paying for because it's going to match up. And I think that when you get that right, that's what really makes the difference between the struggle that so many people face in terms of finding and attracting their ideal clients and doing it with ease. Because when you do it with ease, that's when people are coming to you. That's when people are saying, are you booked up? Can you fit me in? Because they're looking for you before they know who you are. And when you make that authentic first impression where you're speaking to them, to their problems, as Erin said, and you're showing up in that real way that you can solve them, they're sold. They just want you to work with them. This happened to me recently. I've been looking for a couple of different things. I'm going to be very non-specific here because it's still in the works, but I found somebody through their ad targeting and different things that really spoke to me. And I'm in the process of interviewing them for a project because they are doing things in the way that I wanted without me even being able to articulate it. They told me. And so it was through their first impression. And I think that's really key to keep in mind when you are the person creating it. And it can be really challenging. Sometimes you need that clarity of who you are, what you do in your offers. And we're talking about that next week. But without it, so I'm not going to get into that. But when you get that clarity, it's really a beautiful thing. But in the meantime, Erin, do you have any tips for people who are kind of sorting it out? How do you, because we talked about progress over perfection, and I think it's a little bit of a process, especially in the beginning for some folks, or even when people are scaling and up leveling to go from, let's say, 5K to 6K or whatever it is, how do you speak to your ideal client maybe when you're not 100% sure who they are or you think you have 4? And how do you do when you're in these in-between stages of knowing, I know who my ideal client is now, but it's pivoting because I'm now looking to do something a little new and different?
So I think, yes, first of all, the answer is yes, I have tips, but it's kind of a loaded question. I want to go back to something you said, is make it easy. There is nothing wrong with getting words down to start with that give you a starting point. And writing your own copy is rarely easy. So if you're hearing people say, oh, just make it easy, make it simple, which is not saying that's what you're saying at all, Pam, but like, acknowledge that it's insanely hard. Like, I think my website copy that I launched with that is already totally different. Well, it's 18 months, so maybe already is not the right word. It looks very different, and it still took me 6 months to put together. In part because as a copywriter, I feel like I have to get it like spot on. But there are pitfalls. You're going to learn as you go, and there's nothing wrong with having something that's not quite right up there to start with. You can always change it. It's not dynamic. So in the interest of progress over perfection, that's like a really big thing to think about, is it's like, get something up there. Include photos of yourself so it's really authentic. And you don't have to launch with a full website, which is something we talked about yesterday. But if you can get a single page done and done well that makes it clear what you do, who you serve, who you are, that's more, and a way to contact you. Don't forget the way to contact you. That's like literally the most important thing to have on a website. Mm-hmm. And lots of people that I've found have either skipped it or made it so you have to jump through hoops. But if you can include those 4 things on your homepage, and it takes you another 6 months to a year before you have more, that's not a big deal. So what? Because you're making it clear who you are, who you serve, how you serve them, and a way to contact you. And you can, as you go, you can differentiate yourself. And so what I would love to have, like, as a baseline for you to start with is, like an I help statement. And it's the problem with them is that they're I focused instead of you focused. But you can always start in a blank piece of paper and just start jotting down notes. Notes about who you serve, the problems they have, the pain that they have, the realities of what you can help them get to. So I call it the transformation statement, or the so what statement, or so that statement. So, but if you can say, I help entrepreneurs who are women in their 30s and 40s who are ready to have something bigger for themselves by giving them website copy to help them differentiate themselves.
Mm-hmm. Very clear.
It's clear. It may not be laser focused. It may not talk about the end result, the end statement, but it's clear who you serve, how you serve them, what you do. And I can spitball across anything here. So maybe there's like 6 audiences within that, or maybe you serve a totally different audience as well. I would focus on, if you have multiple audiences that are very different, excuse me, focus on the commonalities first, and then you can kind of drill down into the specifics, or figure out who you want to work with the most. Because if you're already attracting, sorry, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, I think like a good strategy that I tell people when you're not sure about how to get clear on who your audience is, make a list, like a running list, even if it's like a Post-it, like next to your computer. And as you think of people who are kind of who could be your audience, write down their characteristics and descriptions, and then start crossing things off so that it gets smaller along the way. For me, I work with people who want to have a location independent lifestyle. Some start their own businesses, some have jobs that are remote friendly. It was really hard for me to articulate that for the longest time because it's more than one person, but the common tie that bound them is the remote work. And so sometimes we overcomplicate these things unintentionally, and it's right in front of us. So when you can put that down on paper, start there, and then have somebody else kind of look at that with you and say, I'm going to tell you who I'm trying to help. What are you hearing? Because they may be able to summarize it, where for you, it's much broader because you don't want to exclude anyone. But keep in mind, you're not, because if you can speak to kind of one focused audience as much as possible, others are going to see the commonalities where it may not be exactly that person. You could be talking to people who are brunettes, and a blonde could come on and say, oh, that would work for me, because it's still about hair and it's a hair product. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. Well, and I think the other thing is you can connect with some people in one way, in one medium, say Facebook groups, because that's where I know the two of us get a lot of our contacts from. And then, but that's maybe not who you want to work with in an ideal world. So make your website target who you want to work with in an ideal world. If there's some commonalities, focus on those first. And then, I think it all depends on where you want to take your business. And then we, whether either Pam or I, or we, the general we, like the rest of the world, can kind of help you get clear on that and just ask, like asking for help. And that was an important point, I think. Having another set of eyes, whether they're the right audience or not, can either help validate, ask questions, show where you're clear or not clear. And I think that's insanely helpful. And there's usually no shortage of people who are happy to give you feedback.
And once you know who kind of the audience is and you're getting clarity on the problems they're having and when they're coming to you, don't be afraid to ask. I can't tell you how many conversations I had with clients. I'm sure I asked Erin when I first met her, why are you working with me? What is it that I do for you? How am I helping you? When did you know you needed to hire someone like me, and how did you find me? Because you do a lot of different things and you don't always know when you're throwing that spaghetti out there what's sticking. And the best way is to come from their own experiences, because what I realized early on, but didn't really put all of it together until more recently, is that most of my clients have worked in corporate or 9-to-5 style jobs pretty recently, wanted to get out to change their lifestyle, or wanted to revamp their lifestyle within a corporate environment. So, and most of them are women. I work with men, but these are the people that are finding me and liking me. So as I've been redoing some of my own website copy, I keep in mind that people who are ready to kind of ditch that traditional corporate to do an updated corporate or go on their own are the ones that are finding me and saying, I need you, because I want to wear a tank top and do a YouTube video and not be part of my work day and not have to wear this business suit and be up at 5 a.m. so I can be out the door at 5:30. for like a 12-hour day?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And there's 2 points that I want to make that kind of tie into that. And so one is the questions that you ask, like ask them what surprises them about working with you, because there's some really interesting topics of conversation that come up, and people either say nothing or they'll say something that's just mind blowing, and there's like no happy medium. But you're like, wow, that made a big difference. So then you can use those words when you're speaking to them, and in your copy, and pay attention to how they describe it. And then the other point is to use the you word as much as possible. And I know that flies in the face of everything you've ever learned about grammar and corporate writing, and even like grade school, college writing, is you're supposed to keep it at third person. But by making it you, even if you don't use a whole lot of the you word, but you use things like get this, not that, do this, not that, it feels like you're speaking to a person. And so that's where you can take your I help statement into get this or do this. And then it's really the end result. And it's kind of cool to watch the transformation as you go, make the writing, and as you slowly refine that statement. And then all of a sudden, like Pam's is reimagine work. And it's just as simple as that, but it was certainly not simple to get there. So know that it's a refined process, and you will get there, and it'll be awesome. So,
and I think that what's really exciting, you know, for me and for Erin, is to be able to come to you and say, like, you're not alone and we can help you. We've both been through this on our own and for clients so many times. And it's something that we can really pinpoint sometimes quicker than you can. So if you're struggling and you're saying, well, that sounds great, you know, Pam has Reimagine Work, and, you know, Erin has all of her genius copy because she's a copywriter on her website, and it all is like branded well throughout her social, but you make it look easy, but it's not. Sometimes it's not as hard as we think. So don't feel like you're alone. Just reach out to us. You know, we always offer this and let you know, find us on social, hi@thezonecommunity.com. There's ways to reach us, and one or both of us can always give you the insight probably that you need to get beyond where you are and eventually to where you want to be. And I think that the key to keep in mind is that as long as you're moving forward and you are open to asking for help, it's available to you so that you can stand up really loud and proud and clear one day very soon and say what you do and who you work with, and show it on your website to make that amazing first impression that you need to make to really show and sell yourself with greater ease.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I'd like to throw out there is there's resources available to you. There's Pam and I. If you join the Zone, there's the community at the Zone who is almost always happy to chime in. And I also have a website checkup that you can grab on my website if you want to see like the boxes that you should be ticking if you're making the right first impression. So you're welcome to snag any of those as resources.
Do you still offer the First Impressions Audit, Erin?
I have a paid version of the First Impressions Audit, and I probably should make that more accessible on my site too, speaking of this. But I'd start with a free checkup and see what that looks like. And then if you're interested in pursuing a live audit, there's some information there as well. And also, Pam and I could do a team. We could tag team an audit as well if you want both of our feedback and both of our perspectives. So the possibilities are endless here if you want some help. But
and for me, it all starts with the clarity that you need around what you're doing, and taking it a step beyond that first impression to what you're offering. So next week, we're going to chime in here and talk about the offers and services that you are putting out into the world on your website primarily, and also just in conversation, how to position them so that you are attracting your ideal clients with ease. So I hope you'll tune in again next week when we will be here having our next conversation. There'll be polls on social media, obviously every week, on the topic that's coming ahead. So we'd love for you to chime in. It gives us a lot of insight and clarity to make sure that we are bringing up things that you want to hear about. And if there's a topic that we have not yet addressed that you'd want to hear our opinion on or our tips for, reach out, because we're here for you and we want to help you build your business, scale your business, transition from whatever you're doing to whatever you want to be doing with the right strategy and marketing and copy along the way to really thrive and enjoy your life, because that's what we're all about here.
That is absolutely it. So cool. Well, we will see you next week to talk more about your offers and services. And in the meantime, we'll hope to see you on social.
Yeah, take care.